What's the date today?
I think it's the 4th.
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the HollingsWorthless podcast. This will be for Wednesday, December 5th. I hope. It's all right.
No.
As always, I just dropped my water. As always, I'm
Wednesday's the 4th.
Wednesday is the 4th? Is that what you said?
Yeah. You want
Hey, what's up, everybody? Welcome to the HollingsWorthless podcast. This will be for Wednesday, the 4th. As always, I'm your host, Big Irish J. Hollingsworth. No Phil Fox. He should be coming back shortly. But I have a very special guest as I grab my water. One of my dearest friends in comedy and in life.
Aw.
Okay, you gotta keep the mic on your chin. Come on, I know you don't.
Well, I do put it on my chin when I talk, but I wasn't talking.
Are we still talking about a mic? One of my dearest friends. She is. I call her the Mitzi Shore of Phoenix.
Okay.
You know I do.
I know you do.
HIllary Hutson.
Hi.
If you're only listening to this, she's much more excited than her voice will show. So Hillary, let me go back to. Let me give your credits before we get into.
I have credits.
Yeah, you are what's your title with Big Pine?
I'm the executive producer and creative director.
She is the executive producer and creative director of Big Pine Comedy Festival with Laughs Unlimited. What's your title?
I am the creative director.
She is the creative director of Laughs Unlimited. And then there's so much other shit you're doing now, too. So what's the festivals and everything that you're working on?
So the 40 for 40 Fest for Laughs Unlimited is celebrating their 40th anniversary, and I'm the executive producer of that.
Okay.
And then we're doing the Cactus Comedy Classic.
This may go on for 5 minutes. Keep going, though.
No.
Yeah.
And then we're doing the Cactus Comedy Classic at Stir Crazy Comedy Club, and I'm the executive producer of that.
Go on.
And then just Broken Drift Productions.
But saying just Broken Drift is like so much under that. So you have what are the podcasts you have? You want to rattle them off, or can you announce those yet?
Well, I mean they're all being released after the first of the year.
Okay. Can you announce them, or do you want to wait?
I can sure.
All right, let's go. We're getting them all out.
So Jack and I are doing
Jack Galvin, who's been on this podcast.
We're doing one called 99 Roommates, which you were on.
Yeah.
And that's because we have like roommates always here,
yes.
Such as yourself. And then there's one called Beach Babble. So we got a beach house. And so I bring comedians mostly out to the beach for a weekend of like non-comedy and just networking and hanging out. Me.
I know you have. I'm just kidding. Before you snap, I'm joking.
And so that's Beach Babble. And then my favorite one is called Too Many First Dates. And it's with me, Jack, Bill Laskowski, Phil Kors, and Mary Upchurch. And it's sort of like a social experiment / podcast about dating and Tinder. And
they basically are going out on thousands of dates, and they can't just pick like, oh, I'll only go out with like a hot chick or a hot dude.
No, they have to swipe on everyone.
Everybody, yeah. And there's already been some interesting stories. So on the first of the year, look for those podcasts.
Thanks. Yeah.
So that's Hillary's work history, so to speak. So I wanted to get into
I forgot one.
Oh yeah, go ahead.
I'm helping Jack Jr. this year with NoHo Comedy Festival, and I'm running the daytime programming for that. So that's the panels, the podcasts, everything during the day.
I'm on the road at Looney Bins. I'm at Looney Bins Comedy Club during that.
You're gone all of May, right?
Pretty much, yeah. Which, I mean, it's good that I'm working. I actually texted Jack. I was like, hey, I wish you the best with the festival. I said I'm on the road then, but I wish you the best.
I know you're going to miss my event, too.
Wait, what's your event now?
The Cactus Comedy Classic.
Oh, yeah. Excuse me. So we have a very important person here on the podcast, HIllary Hutson.
I don't know about that, but thank you.
So I first met you at House of Comedy. Jack brought you. Do you remember this? I remember this.
Jack Galvin?
Yeah. Do you remember this?
I don't know.
So Jack brought you to House of Comedy, and you used to help book that, right?
I was the booker
for
a time.
Another title. I think this is when you were the booker then, and I think this is 2 years ago, before Big Pine, 2 years ago, and Jack brought you, I think, to see me about offering me a headlining thing, and I think Jack either asked me to, or he mentioned that he loves the cheating whores bit. And he had mentioned that, like, I think he told me that he had told you, like, just wait, wait till the end or whatever.
It's probably true.
Yeah, but I think that was the first time I met you. That was the first time I met you.
So I don't remember this at all.
That's good.
I knew about you from Casey.
Oh, Casey.
Casey from Stand Up Live has been mentoring me.
He's the best.
Yeah, and
Casey Curtis, shout out.
Yeah, thanks, Casey. And so we're having lunch every month, and he was just mentoring me a little bit, and he kept saying, like, you should really think about Big Irish J. You should really think about Big Irish J. And so I think, like, you were going to be there, or you were in town or something. So Jack must have brought me, because I was like, I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know this guy.
Yeah.
And now you live here.
Yeah. So let's get into that. So people that listen to the podcast or, know me or whatever, they know I've been out here in Arizona. Like, I'm bouncing back and forth between Arizona and LA. And whenever I'm out here, which is months at a time, is here, like June, July, and I think most of August I was here. I know I was here June, July.
Yeah. And then you were here for like the beginning of August, but then you came back because of Big Pine.
That's right.
So you were here for like most of September too.
Was I? Jesus.
Or I think like half of it. But you were gone for like 3 weeks in August. Yeah. And then you came back.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And then, what's
You're
funny,
always welcome.
I appreciate that. Then this podcast ends. You're like, get the fuck out. No, but it's funny because, I'm single. I've, whatever. I don't know. I guess you'd say I'm dating or whatever. But I've gone on a few dates with women out here. And they're like, oh, where do you stay? I'm like, oh, I stay out in Cave Creek. And they're like, oh, wow, that's out there and blah, blah, blah. And like, if it comes to where they're like, oh, so do you rent? Do you have a house out there? And then I'm like, oh, I stay with my friend. And then if it keeps going, they're like, oh, who's your friend? Oh, my friend Hillary. Hillary, and then it's always like, I have to go into that. I'm like, she's a good friend of mine. She runs a Big Pine Comedy Festival. And I have to go through this whole thing.
I sleep in her 6-year-old's bedroom.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So for those, the listeners, when I'm out here in Phoenix, this is where I'm always at, is I'm always staying here.
I would be hurt now, I think, at this point.
No, you wouldn't.
Yeah. If you were like, yeah, I'm doing a run and I'm staying in Phoenix for like a month and you didn't even ask, I would be like, I would blame it on the kids, first of all. I would be like, Jay's tired of 2 little boys, and that's fine. But they're a lot, especially because you don't have kids.
Well, now that I'm in one of their rooms, it's great. Like when I was down, so how many bedrooms do you have here? Like 5 or 6?
Well, so there's 4 actual bedrooms upstairs, and then there's the bedroom downstairs, but it doesn't have a door.
Yeah, it has like curtains, and I was staying in there for a little bit, and the kids in the morning they would come in there and you'd get woke up, but it's fine. It's it's not that big of a deal.
Well, that's good. I'm glad. I always feel so bad, but then I just try to remind myself, like, we live here. Jay knows that we live here, so
it's your house. It's like, what am I gonna be like? Hey, can you evict the small one?
He doesn't pay rent.
Yeah, I know, it's just, and also like the kids, I think I think they kind of get me now as I get them. Like Brady, with his gun, he learned. Did I tell you? I think I told you what I did. I took his gun for a week.
Yeah.
Yeah, he kept shooting me, and I was like, you shoot me again, I'm taking the gun from you. And then he did it, and so I took his little rifle Nerf thing from him, and I hit it. Then he had his pistol, and I go, you shoot me with that, I'm taking that for a week. So he kept doing stuff. I was like, you're going to have no toys. And so I hit him all for a week. And then after the week, he was like, can I have the guns back now? It's been a week.
You gave them back?
Yeah.
Oh, see, I take them away, but I don't know. I don't give them back. Well, I'm like, no, it's gone now forever.
Well, he kept like, for a second, he was like faking like he was going to shoot me again. I was like, if I take him again, then you won't get him back. And it's nice to know you got my back.
Yeah, absolutely. They're not allowed to shoot people unless they have permission. I mean, that's our rule, is that you're not supposed to shoot people unless they acknowledge that you're in a gunfight. Like if they say like, okay, dude, we can have a gunfight, then they're allowed to shoot you. But if they don't do that, they're not supposed to shoot you.
Yeah. I mean, I get it. I'm a big target, so. You know. And the other thing with staying here too is like there's so many times that you're not even here.
I am here very rarely. Yeah, a lot of times I feel like you're here by yourself.
All right, I'll hold the fort down. You know. Oh, did I don't know if I told Jack. I turned your air off upstairs when you were gone.
Perfect.
Just because I was like, I don't need the heat.
Yeah, I get cold.
I know. I turned it back on though before you.
Well, it's so funny because I turn on the air every night. I turn the heat on to 74 right before I go to bed. And then right before I fall asleep, I jump up and I turn it down to 70 because I know that your room, because my room, you don't know this, but my room's the coldest of
really?
all the rooms. Yeah. So I know that your room's warm. So I turn it all the way down. And then first thing when I get up in the morning, I turn it up to 74 because I have to like get the kids ready for school and whatever. And then as soon as it warms up, I turn it off.
Don't worry about me. I turned the fan on
because I'm like, we're sweating Jay out of that room.
No. Don't worry. I'm telling you, I appreciate everything. So, I wanted to talk about how you got into. What were you doing before you got into comedy? So, Big Pine was your first. Was that your your first foray into comedy? Then would have been the booking at House of Comedy.
No.
Oh, okay. All right. So before we get into your first thing in comedy, what were you doing?
I was really sick. I have some autoimmune deficiencies. And I was really, really sick. I was running special events at our church. And it's my parents were one of the founding families. And
the sweetest people.
My parents?
Yeah.
They're not going to listen to this. You don't have to be.
It's all right. And I'll tell you about my first experience with your parents when I didn't know it was your parents.
And so I was running events at their church and helping with the youth group. And I left. Not on great terms. Right. And so Jack Galvin decided that he was going to try comedy.
Gotcha. And so I'm sorry I keep interrupting you.
Okay.
I'm catching everybody up that's listening. So Jack Galvin has been on the podcast before. We did like a run through Canada and Boston, and you and Jack have been buddies since you were kids. Yeah,
since high school. We grew up in our church youth group together.
Gotcha. All right. Sorry.
It's okay. So he decided he was going to start comedy, and he took a master's class. And the guy teaching it told him, if there's something you're not good at, you should find somebody who is and ask them to help you. And I was bedbound at the time. I mean, I got out of bed once or twice a week and not very often. So he asked me if I could help him with his social media because I could do it from home. And so I started just with social media. And I bought every book that Barnes & Noble had on comedy and social media. And I just read everything that I could, probably like 20 books.
Damn.
And then he just was doing comedy with Sydney Smith.
Oh, yeah.
And he gave him his first time on stage. And so we worked with him for a little while. And then somebody offered Jack a show. It was a heavy metal show. And it was a festival. Yeah. And they wanted comedians to do stage time in between the acts.
Well,
but I didn't know that at the time. And Jack didn't want to do it. And I had found a couple people that I really liked. Just from going to open mics and stuff with him. And so I was like, I have done events like this. I can do this. So we did. There's one in the summer and one in the winter, so we did 3 of them.
The heavy metal things.
Mm-hmm.
By the way, what I think is hilarious is you not knowing, but in your head, you're like, I like these comics, so I'm giving them a great opportunity. But now like hard rock and stand up are probably not a good mix.
The only saving grace is that the event was at Marquee Theater, and so to be able to do some stage time at Marquee Theater, especially to the comedians. I wasn't asking headliners to come out and do 5 minutes. They were local at the time. They're not now, but at the time they were open mic comics.
Right. Yeah.
So it was fun. It was an important part of my career because I formed some really good relationships. One of the people that I asked to do it was Brian Kearley, who's now on my production team, and he's like my right-hand man at all the festivals and everything. And so he and I became friends through that event. So I still think, even though heavy metal and comedy don't mix, it was a good choice for me.
And also being new for them.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and so the guy who ran that worked at a bar that was in Old Town Scottsdale, and they wanted to have comedy every month. And so he was so impressed from this comedy show at the heavy metal concert that he asked me if I wanted to start booking the show at the bar. And I was like, yeah, sure. So I, in like overnight, got this really cool venue. Yeah, I was producing a show in Scottsdale. And
now, how long ago was this? This is what, 5 years ago? 4 years ago?
This February I don't know.
Okay.
Yeah. So, this September will be the 6th Big Pine, and I was at the first one.
Okay.
So
was I.
You were?
I was one of the headliners there.
Really?
I stayed in the house with Billy O'Connor.
Okay.
That's when I met Billy for the first time. Was back when Ryan was running it.
So Jack and I were just volunteering, and we ran the door at most of the venues.
That's crazy. All right. Okay, so you're doing you got the Scottsdale gig. You're producing the Scottsdale gig.
Mm-hmm. And then Jack applied to Big Pine. He didn't get in. We went up and volunteered anyway. And we were driving down the mountain, and I was like, Flagstaff's the perfect place to have a festival. Like, you could do so much more with that festival. How do I get Ryan to let me be more involved? How do I learn, and what do I need to do so that I can be a part of it? And now I run it. Yeah.
Well, I want to get to how we got there. So, which also, by the way, I don't know if you ever pushed this or mentioned this. So, when you take submissions for Big Pine, and people, you can't let everybody in, or everybody doesn't get accepted or whatever, but you always say people can volunteer, and then you have like side shows and stuff where they can get time. What's interesting is you can say, I did it.
Yes.
Do you push that or mention that?
Yeah, so we do mention Jack actually has never been accepted to Big Pine.
That's hilarious.
We volunteered the first 2 years, actually. He applied the first 2 years and didn't get in, and we volunteered, and at the second year is when Ryan was like, do you guys want this thing? And so, yeah, I absolutely believe that volunteering is like a real thing, and with Broken Drift and all of our things, we want to get everybody involved who wants to be involved. And that doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be a paid headliner. That doesn't necessarily mean that you'll be accepted as a submission. It just means that if you want to be involved, we want to know what you're good at, how you want to be involved, and we will do our best to make you a part of the team.
Yes.
So.
And I'll plug, or we'll plug Big Pine when we get there. Okay, so that first year, you're driving back. You're like, how do you get more involved? Flagstaff's the best. Second year comes up. You're not at House of Comedy yet, right?
No.
You're still producing the Scottsdale show.
Mm-hmm. Jack was hanging out at House of Comedy a lot.
Okay.
They were going through a transition of bookers, and he was trying to, get to know the one booker, and then they left, and that's when they brought in Matt Broom, and Matt Broom was the new booker. And so he was there all the time, and I really wasn't there that much.
Okay.
Until we took over Big Pine.
Okay, so I guess we'll move forward. What, the third year now? The third year of it you took over?
Well, the second one, during the second Big Pine, the first night of the festival, Ryan pulled Jack aside and said, I don't really want to do this anymore.
Second year in, Jesus.
And I had already gone to bed. Like, it was so glorious. I really didn't cherish the first 2 years of the festival enough because I was just a volunteer, so I would go. And at about 10 o'clock, I would gas out, and I would go home and go to bed, and Jack would stay and do the comedy thing and hang out with all the comedians, and I would get a great rest.
Oh, yeah.
And so Jack like the next morning when I woke up, he's like, "You're never gonna believe this." He's like, "But Ryan wants to give us Big Pine," and I was like, "Okay, like today?"
Yeah. Wow.
So yeah.
That is crazy. So, how does something like that work? Where somebody has a festival, and then do they just go, "Okay, here's the keys to it," or how does that work? Like, do you have is it a contract sign or paperwork or a handshake deal, or is this something you can talk about, or what?
I don't really know how much I want to talk about it, but it was super simple. He just said, "I don't want to do this anymore. If you guys want to do it," they gave us the passwords to everything, and I sat with him for like an hour and took notes, and then I was off on my own, and I was like,
crazy.
"Great, I have this festival. What do I do with it?" And so the festival was not a corporation or anything. And so we immediately made it into a nonprofit and just moved forward from there. So
and that took place, like, are you taking over or it becoming yours, however you want to say it? Did that happen in the middle of the second year, or did you wait till it was over and like, okay, now it's official?
He announced like at the end of the festival when he did a Facebook post and said like, "Thanks for coming," whatever. In that post, he said, "I'm happy to announce that Hillary and Jack are taking over." So it was immediate.
Wow, that's crazy.
Yeah.
And so you're driving back from Flagstaff that year, and are you just like already? You're like, okay, third year, what are we doing? How are you immediately? Because I know, I mean, having been around you, I know how you're like you just got done with Big Pine and you're working on your headliners for next year.
Well, I actually had a list of who I was going to go after before even the 2019 festival was done, and I already had the schedule done. I mean, I've tweaked it since, but I start about a month before the festival happens. I get burnt out on it, and I move on. I'm like, I can't focus on this festival anymore. I'm super stressed. And so I start immediately planning the next year's festival.
You're like, I'm so over this. They're like, it's 3 weeks away.
Yeah, because I just can't breathe.
Yeah.
So I have to do something to keep busy. And so I just start working on planning the next year's festival before the current year is finished.
Wow. Okay, so end of second Big Pine Festival, you're driving back to Phoenix, and from then until the beginning of the third year, what is happening with you in comedy?
So I reached out immediately. I was like, after making it a nonprofit, I decided that we had to have industry. And I was so naive. If I knew then what I knew now, I don't know that I would have so eagerly taken over the festival. But I just don't think I anticipated how much work it was going to take from, I mean, you've been to the festival now. It's a very different experience. And so I just don't think I realized how many man hours it was going to take to get it from what it was to what it could be, which I still don't think we're there. I mean, I think we're miles closer, but every year I'm like, I can do this and I can do this. And so I reached out to House of Comedy and Matt Broom very timidly. I reached out to Matt Broom and I asked him to help me bring industry in and make some connections. And he did. He was great about that. He definitely helped me transition it from like small town festival to an industry attended event. So
yes, and which is kind of crazy because I don't know the consensus of all the comics, but as far as I know, and I think a lot of comics probably, it's like, you think of the Just for Laughs is the top comedy festival. Everybody talks about that. After that, Big Sky. A lot of people know Big Sky, and I now put Big Pine up with Big Sky as far as like, I mean, honestly, like with the industry and like how the comics are treated. I mean,
I'm smiling.
Not,
For people who can't see, for people who can't see me, I'm grinning.
And I'm not blowing smoke up your ass. I
mean,
I've told you this. I mean, because it's like there's a lot of festivals or festivals/comedy competitions where, you have to, all of them you have to pay to submit, right? And then if you get accepted, okay, now you're accepted. I'd say 95% of them. Okay, cool. Now you're accepted to this. We'll just pick a city in Omaha, Nebraska. I don't even know if there's a festival there. I think there might be a Johnny Carson one, but I'm picking a city wherever you've been accepted to this festival in Omaha. Now you have to get your airfare out there. You have to get your hotel out there. You have to get your food out there. And then once you get out there, I'd say out of all the festivals, I'd say 50% maybe have industry that matters. I mean, and I'll shit on some festivals without naming them and compliment some that I will name. So there's been competitions I've done where the celebrity judge is a weatherman from the local TV channel.
Yeah, absolutely. It's super common.
Yeah, and they're judging. Or I did a competition where one of the judges was just one of the bar patrons that was hammered, and you're like, okay, great. So a lot of festivals and competitions, you're just like, what am I doing here? Now, the flip of it, I just posted about it today. The Bay Area Black Comedy Competition. I did it 2 years. 1 year I was the only white guy in the finals, and everybody's like, it's like, you did the Bay Area Black Comedy. I was like, yeah, I think black comedy it's got its own lane, that it's a different vibe and everything, and I do well in black rooms. But when I moved to LA, I got more things, more spots, and more work from the connections and networking I made at the Bay Area. It was crazy. Like, I would go to these, I remember, I think it was Turn Up Tuesday at the Comedy Store. Bob Sumner had a show there, and I walk in, and all these black comics that he did, they were like, oh, what's up, Big Irish, blah, blah, blah. You want to get a spot next week or whatever? And it was crazy. And that's the connections you make at like Big Pine and Big Sky now, is like these comics you meet, and then the industry. Like I have the contact, I have Michael Cox, the booker for the Tonight Show and all this. I have their contact, if I need to get a hold of him. I mean, not that he'll reply, but
he actually hasn't been to Big Pine, but he is on my list. And
was at Big Sky though?
Yes, yeah. But he is on my list, and he has expressed interest. It just didn't really work out yet. Yeah, Jeff Singer's come.
Just for Laughs guy.
Yeah, Just for Laughs. I will say one thing about what you said. It sucks when you enter a competition or a festival where maybe the industry or the judges aren't what you expected. But the fact of the matter is if you win that or you place in that, the bookers and people who read your resume with that credit don't know that the judges were shit.
Yes. Yeah, true.
So if you are still Omaha's funniest comedian or whatever, they don't know that it was the local weatherman that picked you. They just read it's Omaha's funniest comedian.
True.
So I still think there's a value in that. Also, depending on where you are in your career, any competition, one, it's stage time, because a lot of comedians are just competing for stage time. And two, a lot of the other comedians who are competing in a contest are bookers. I mean, maybe not at a club, but they are bookers of like off night shows or whatever. And so it does sort of behoove you to go and do well in front of just the other comedians. Yeah,
I'm not saying if you're doing like, if you feel like a competition is shit or rigged or whatever, to just say fuck it and tank it.
Right.
There's a saying that I heard a long time ago about comedy competitions, which is you can't win them all, but you can get booked at them all.
Yes, so absolutely.
And so it's I mean, it's we talked about we were talking about a comic that doesn't want to host. I won't say, but right. And you hear this from a lot of comics that are like, and it's interesting. I think you get that more from somebody that's a newer headliner. So somebody that's headlining, and you offer them whatever it is, you're like, hey, can you host this or whatever? And like, whoa, man, I don't host. I only headline now. I'm like, all right, fucking work is work. And I was saying to you, I was like, I was like, oh, you know what Steve Harvey does now? He hosts a show. You know what Alonzo Bowden does? He hosts Family Feud. This cruise. Fucking Louis Anderson hosted. Drew Carey hosts a show. All these people are hosting that were
Well, and like the
comics.
Oscars. I mean, there are so many events where comedians are the
Yeah,
hosts.
Chris Rock.
Yeah. So hosting is absolutely one of the most valuable skills I think you can have in your little tool belt of comedy.
Absolutely. And to Rick Brunson and House of Comedy, to their credit, they, I don't necessarily like the format. It's like the Canadian style or European style, but I totally respect it and get House of Comedy. The host is the second most important after the headliner. So the host will do more time usually than the feature act, which is I totally get and I respect that,
Well, because they can set the tone and they can also save the show if it's going a certain way, or bring the crowd back around for the headliner, or whatever.
Absolutely. So all right, so we're at year 3.
Yeah.
You're getting you asked Matt Broom for some help. A House of Comedy, they're helping.
Yeah.
And
Rick decided to sponsor us.
Yes.
No, actually, Rick didn't sponsor us until after year 3.
Okay.
So we did year 3, and it was such a success that Rick had heard about it by the time the festival was over. And so when I got back, Matt had been helping me talk to Rick, and so Rick invited me over to his home. And I went over there. He said, I want to sponsor the festival for next year. I'm willing to help you. And he offered me a job working at the club.
Wow.
So they didn't have a position for me at the time. So I was the group sales manager.
Gotcha.
And I started out as the group sales manager. And then the box office manager left.
Okay.
Shannon was promoted to general manager. So she's the general manager in Phoenix. I became the box office manager. So I was the group sales manager and the box office manager. And I did that for a year almost. And then when they transitioned the booker out, I got the booking position as well. And then once I started doing that, I slowly started transitioning out of the box office.
Gotcha.
Into just producing
and that's happening around the 4th year of Big Pine. Yeah, because you said he didn't sponsor the year 3, but he heard about it and said
so I was the booker by year 4.
Gotcha. And what was the one that we just did? What Big Pine?
Year 5.
Okay, gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
All right, so that's year 4.
And I quit.
Yes.
I quit my job at House of Comedy 2 weeks after the 4th Big Pine.
Gotcha.
The 4th Big Pine was great for the comedians that were there. We did have some instances, as I think you always do when you're planning an event for thousands of people. But it was the hardest for me of all of them.
Okay.
Emotionally and probably physically. It was just the worst.
So I want to ask you, over the years, and you don't have to say the comic, but what has been some of your worst experiences running a festival with comics or industry or anybody involved with it? What's been some of your worst experiences, and also what's been some of your best experiences? The best, you can name the people.
The best experiences are definitely the relationships I've made. I mean, you're a shining example of that. I have made outstanding relationships with the industry and the performers that I would hope would even outstand this crazy thing called comedy and just like a real life connection with people. So I definitely would say that. Also, Big Pine has opened so many doors for me. Not financial doors, but so many doors just in opportunities where I've had a chance to really be in the right place at the right time in front of the right people just because of Big Pine. So I'm like super grateful to the festival and everyone who volunteers and who's even been a part of it, and to Ryan for giving it to us. And the worst experience,
some of them.
So I think the hardest thing for me, I always say Big Pine's magic, and I know that that's like totally cheesy, but Flagstaff is this totally weird little town that's like a piece of history. Route 66 runs right through it, and the whole town's 100 years old. Most of our venues are over 100 years old, and it's just like this tiny little like moment in time. It's like originally like a lumber town and a railroad town, and so it's very unique, and and it's a lot of hippies and tree huggers and college kids.
I was gonna say you got the college kids.
Yeah,
in
so
there.
the population of I'm gonna butcher this, but the population of Flagstaff is like in the 20,000s or something, and then 40,000 more people show up for school.
Right.
So I mean, it just multiplies. So it's a really unique little place, and it's not always what people expect. And I think my least favorite thing is we get hundreds and hundreds of submissions of people who want to come,
right,
and who are angry with us when they don't get to come. I mean, every year it gets a little bit easier, but every year we get phone calls and hate emails from people who are like, I can't believe I didn't get in. This is bullshit. Or they're like talking about us behind closed doors to other comics who they don't think are going to tell us. Like, I know if you have talked shit about me in Phoenix comedy, I probably know about it, because I try very hard to be friends with as many people as I can. I try not to pick sides in things. And so people tell me when someone's talking about me.
Right.
So, and I think that's just comedy, but, so I take it a little bit personal, and I get a little bit offended when somebody comes to the festival and doesn't make the most out of it that they can, because there are so many other people that really would have given anything to come and to take advantage of that opportunity. And so you're wasting it.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just a shame. It's a shame that you spent money to fly out here or drive out here or whatever. You're spending 3 or 4 days with us, and you can't see the coolness of the experience and just like the other comics that are there and the industry that are there and the town. Like, the town's a really cool town to walk around and stuff. And it's just really too bad that you are like too caught up in whoever you think you are,
Right.
that no one else cares about.
Yeah. And can I say one other thing too?
Yeah.
That's kind of piggybacking off that. So somebody gets into Big Pine, you pay their room and board. You put them up.
Not technically.
Okay.
So technically we provide accommodation discounts. We have never not paid for accommodations in full. But that all depends on how many donations come in.
Gotcha.
So because we are a nonprofit, we collect donations, and our first thing that we work on is accommodations.
Gotcha.
But we don't technically provide free accommodations.
Gotcha. I understand.
But we have never not.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, what I was going to say is it's like, you know, I know one year that some comics were bitching about their free room, the room they didn't pay for, however you want to say it. And I'm like, bro, anybody, I'm like, unless this is the first time you've ever done a festival and you have no idea how festivals work, no other, there's literally handful of festivals that do that provide a place for you to lay your head.
It's very expensive.
Yeah, I know. And I'm like,
the rooms are I'll tell you, the rooms are $159 a night.
It's like 3 nights.
Well, last year it was 5.
Dude.
So, I mean, it's very expensive. And when the first year, because Ryan did also provide free accommodations, the comedians were staying, and I love it, but at the Grand Canyon Hostel and the Motel de Beau, which is now where our production staff stays. But it's a hostel. We sleep in bunk beds.
Yeah.
And so the comedians all stayed there the first year and second year of the festival. And then
I was in some mansion. I don't know.
Well, you were lucky.
Ryan, me and Billy and I forget who else. I know it was me and Billy and Ryan and maybe somebody else. Maybe because I was headlining one of the shows. I don't know. But I was just like, all right, cool.
That's
but
perfect.
I mean, I always say, as long as I got a roof over my head, I do not give a shit.
Well, and I always tell people the third year of Big Pine, which was my first year, should be the worst. Because my intention is to improve it every year. So
gotcha.
Every year we go through the festival and we make tweaks. We get better deals on accommodations. The local venues get to know us better and they offer more things for the comedians. The festival grows and so more industry wants to come. And so hopefully every year is better than the next, or at least equally as good as the last.
Now, do you ever... I mean, I know, like, leading up to the festival, I'd say about a week or 2 weeks before, a month out of the festival, I'll ask you how you're doing. And then about a month out, I know to just not ask you about it.
I can't breathe for about 4 weeks.
So do you ever worry about, like, you're going to get to the point where you throw up your hands and do a Ryan, so to speak, where you're just like, I can't do this anymore?
I think about it more times than you would think.
I don't know if I no, because I totally can see it, especially like I said, especially that month to 2 months leading up to it. Because I've been here and I see, your living room is sprawled out with like the gift bag and organizing everything, and I look at it, and I'm like, God bless you. I am like, Jesus. And what's funny is, like, maybe that's why I get so annoyed at, like, comics, because I see the behind the scenes shit, and, like, I think people will take it for granted, but I mean, any comic that's produced a show, just a fucking one show with like 4 comics, and know the stress from that. Now imagine a fucking festival,
Right, yeah.
Idiots. But so you do have those where you were like, I don't know if I can do this?
Yeah. Well, I mean, to be completely honest, I don't.
Is this an exclusive?
No. Yeah. I mean, comedy... I love comedy, and the only reason why I do comedy is because I love it, and when I don't love it anymore, I'm not going to do it. It doesn't pay my bills. Right. Regardless of what people think, comedy pays 0 bills in this household. Yeah. I have little boys and a daughter. I have, a family. I have all of these things. Man. Yeah, I have all of these things, and I don't want to say I don't need it, because I feel like my soul needs it. But I could just walk away and be a normal person. Yeah. I could just go be a civilian and go about my business. And I believe in time I would pick up another thing and I would do that. So I definitely toy with the idea all the time. Especially because my parents don't love comedy. They're not big fans of what I do. So I would say it's a constant battle of staying in comedy or not staying in comedy. And now I'm not like, there's all these comedians that say, like, I'm quitting, I'm taking time off. I've never gone so far as to say that. I know myself in my head where I'm like, it's just a bad day. Yeah. Like, tomorrow you'll wake up and you'll be refreshed. And I do. And there's always someone, you or Mary Upchurch or someone will reach out, and I'll be like, okay, this is why I do this, and it's fine. I'm just going to keep going. But yeah, I hate it and love it at the same time.
Well, speaking of your parents, I'll say really quick my first interaction with them.
Yeah.
You know about this?
It was a Big Pine.
Yeah. And I'm trying to remember whose podcast it was.
I think it was just one of the panels. Or was it a podcast?
Maybe it was... I remember having a microphone, though, so it might have... Well, whatever it was, the question was asked to me, what's my favorite word? Do you know this?
Yeah, you said cunt. Yeah. Mimi, my mom, which she goes by Mimi.
I love her.
She is
Your dad loved it.
She's the most conservative... Yes.
Sweet lady.
Yeah, she's so sweet, and she's just super innocent. I can't express to you enough how innocent this woman is. I mean, she likes a margarita, but beyond that, she's just very,
now, I can
very
see
innocent.
Them, like, if you're watching this video, they're about the distance from the camera to me, and I could see them. I just thought it was this older couple in the audience, and I was like, whoever asked me, they were like, what's your favorite word? And I was like, I think it's probably cunt. And they were like, what? I was like, yeah, like, like I think of it like in the Irish term, like, you fucking cunt or whatever, whatever. And then I even referenced, I was like, I'm so sorry, blah, blah, blah. But then your dad, I think, said something to me like, I saw him later, and he was like, "What's up, you cunt?" or something like that.
My mom probably did not hear him say that.
And then I found out, like, I don't know when I found out, but then when I found out that was your parents, I was like, "Oh my God."
She talks about you often.
I love her.
And the first thing she tells everyone when she talks about you is, "I really love him. He's so nice, but I wish he'd watch his mouth." And that's what she says all the time.
I think that's what everybody says.
He's so nice, but I just wish he'd watch his mouth, because she just really, yeah. I love her.
Yeah. I hope so.
My mom is the most caring, most loving. She would do anything for anyone ever, no questions asked. Like I always say, if the apocalypse comes and you're not sure if you missed it, if you go to my mom's house, you'll just find a pile of clothes, because she's one of the ones that is, if you believe in heaven, she's going. Yeah. She'll be one of the only ones that actually goes. I'm not sure. I'll probably still be here, but she's going. I mean, she is the nicest, really, really nice.
She reminds me of my grandmother. Like about what I used to say about my grandmother is I used to say, she'll give you the shirt off her back and ask you if you want her pants too.
Mm-hmm.
You know, that's the way I explain it. But yeah, that was my first interaction with Hillary's parents.
She does love you, but she does.
I know.
She does.
I love her too.
Not want you to swear.
I just wish she would learn to swear a little.
She says shit. So she worked at a I'm gonna a cow something.
Okay.
She worked in the
a cowl?
Cows, like
cattle,
with steers,
gotcha,
like cattle and steer and whatever, in that industry for a while. And so she says shit.
Cow shit and shit like
well,
that.
she just says shit a lot. And she'll say like, "Oh, I should stop saying that." And I'm like, "Don't listen."
My grandmother used to say, "Oh, Hector." She'd say, "Oh, Hector." And I'm like, "Who the fuck is Hector?" You know? Or she'd say, did she used to say fiddlesticks? Oh, fiddlesticks.
I love that.
Oh, fiddlesticks.
So my mom's least favorite word is fuck. She hates
over cunt.
Well, I mean, I don't know that I don't feel like that's a typical swear word in like the arsenal of swear words. So, but she will tell you, I just hate that word, the F word. She just hates it, and I say it pretty frequently. So
yeah, so do I. But, you know,
I try not to around her, but
I don't around her now.
Really?
Unless I'm on stage.
Really?
Oh yeah, I don't swear around your mom.
That's
like if
so
we're
nice
here,
of you.
If we're here, I'm not like, "Hey, what the fuck's up, Mimi?" What's up, you cunt?
That's so nice of you, Jay.
Well, no, I
mean, she would love you either way.
Yeah, no, I don't swear when around Mimi. I say it's going into my grandparents' mode. You know, like I wouldn't swear.
Well, they are grandparents. Yeah. They're in their 70s.
Yeah, that's crazy. I'm like 20 some years away from. That's so crazy.
Don't do the math. I don't want to know.
Oh, God. So you just completed your 5th year of Big Pine. So in the last year, it's been in the last year, you completed the 5th year of Big Pine. You become what was the title with Laughs Unlimited in Sacramento?
Well, I'm an investor. And I'm the creative director. So my technical title is a creative director, because I didn't want to just invest. I felt like that was the easy way out.
Right.
And so I wanted to really help and make a difference and try to, I really like the creative stuff. So I wanted to try to do some things there that they weren't doing. So.
Which is such I mean, I think I told you this too. I love that pairing of, so people have heard me talk on the podcast before about Jen at Laughs Unlimited. There's a small group of bookers / managers of clubs that I always mention that I love. Casey's one of them. Casey Courier. I like Rick. I fucking love Rick. Little fuck. I just saw him for his birthday when he was here, and I walked up. He's like, "What are you doing here?" I was like, "I had to pay my respects to the Godfather." And Tammy's great. Jen. I always mention Jen, and I always mention Cott.
Yes.
In Boston.
He's great.
Yeah, I just texted with him today.
And thank you for that connection.
Yeah, he's the best.
He's so great.
And you and Jen are such a great balance.
Thank you. We always say, so our whole thing is like, she's the yin to my yang.
Yeah, absolutely.
She is making me much tougher.
Yes.
And she's really good at numbers. I am terrible at math and numbers. And that's not my strong suit. And she's really good at keeping the books and doing that kind of stuff. And she doesn't see, like, I see the world in like rainbows, and I'm very artistic. And so I have a hard time, not being artistic, and she doesn't really have that bone. So, she and I are a great combination.
I do. When I first heard about it, and I don't remember how I heard about it or when you told me or whatever, but I immediately was like, it's fucking perfect. It's such a good balance, you know?
Yeah, I love working with her. I love Laughs Unlimited in Sacramento, and our intention is to open more locations over time. And so I super look forward to that, because I just have so many ideas for like design, and I just have so many things that I want to do, and I just want to like jump all the way in. And that's the thing. So when we were talking about me like getting out of comedy, I don't think I would ever get out completely. I love Jenny.
Yeah.
And I don't think at this time, I don't see myself leaving Laughs Unlimited. When I say I would get out of comedy, it's like I would get out of dealing with 2,000 people every year and trying to house them, and not that running a club is easier, it's just a different beast.
Yeah.
And so I think that sometimes the festival life is exhausting, and so it might be nice to quit the festival part of comedy and just do.
Do you think you would, hypothetically, let's say it gets to that point where it's affecting your health, or for whatever reason, you're like, for my peace of mind, I need to step away. Do you think it would be like a cut where you're just like, it's done, Broken Drift has nothing to do with this, blah, blah, blah? Or would it be like, I'm stepping away, but Jack and X, Y, and Z people are going to run it under the Broken Drift umbrella?
So we've talked about that because I do. I mean, I don't always want to run Big Pine. I would like to always be involved. I sit on the board. So I would probably always like to have some sort of involvement, but I don't know that I'll always be the executive director. I would like to at some point say, and pay someone and say, okay, here's the manual on Big Pine. Ask as many questions as you want. You plan it. I'm going to come and party and have a good time with all of my friends who are industry performers and whatever. And I'll judge for you, and I'll be industry. I'll do panels, like whatever. But like the day-to-day stuff, I don't really want to do.
Gotcha. And outside of Big Pine, or like, I guess, moving forward, not speaking on Big Pine, what are some of your goals or aspirations or dreams, so to speak? I mean, you've got all these podcasts you're doing, and that's under the Broken Drift Productions? Yeah,
the guys at Broken Drift were like, well, so I'm going through a separation from my husband, and that's been that. So that was part of year 4 Big Pine. My husband moved out in August, and Big Pine's in September. And also in August, my youngest son was having some health problems, major health problems. And so I was dealing with all of that and the festival, plus all the festival stuff. So I think that definitely contributed to that being my least favorite year.
Yeah.
But where was I going with that?
What's outside of Big Pine? Goals in the future.
So yeah, but I was gonna tell you something else. Shit. Well, I want to have clubs.
Gotcha. I mentioned that you had all these podcasts.
So my parents have been very adamant about I should spend more time at home because my husband and I are separated and the kids are going through a transition or whatever. And so we were running the San Diego Comedy Festival previously, which we
forgot to mention at the beginning.
Well, we're not running it.
It was one of your credits.
So for 2019, we ran the San Diego Comedy Festival, and it was great. Tony from the Comedy Palace is phenomenal to work with. He's very kind, and I enjoyed my time working with
Great
him.
food.
Yeah. And it was fun. It was a learning experience. Our team as a production team really, we went as a skeleton crew and we really hunkered down and worked very hard for that. So, I was spending lots of time away because last year I went to a lot of festivals. So planning a festival is not just enough. You also have to like go to other festivals. I have to meet the industry. As hard as it is for you to email a booker and say, hey, I'd love to do your club. If I'm just some random girl in Arizona that's like, hey, I have this festival and I'd love for you to come hang out at it for like a few days, that's really difficult. But if I can get in front of them and have a few conversations with them, whatever, it's much easier. Ryan Cott is a perfect example. I don't think if I had just cold emailed him, he would have come to the festival.
I mean, I could have put in a word.
Well, yeah, and you did put in a word. But I mean, I really think that like going to Boston and being around him for multiple days and spending time with him is beneficial. Yeah. And so I just was traveling so much. And so this year I am taking a step back, although I'm running all these events, but
But you're doing it here from home base.
Yeah, I'm doing it here from home. And so that's where the podcasting came in, is me spending more time at home with my kids and still being involved in comedy and creating content and whatever. So.
And all right, here we go. We'll go with the last question here. How would you, and then we got to do a worthless of the week.
Oh, you didn't even ask the hard things that I thought you were going to ask. This is great. Go ahead. I don't know. Just ask.
Wait, now I'm.
No, it's fine. Just ask your last question.
Oh, Jesus. Now I think I forgot my question. What would your response be if one of your sons or your daughter was like, I want to be a comedian?
Brady would be a great comedian. Absolutely. He likes the spotlight. He has ADHD. He has OCD. He has sensory processing disorder. So he has all the little things that are like.
Yeah. Thanks.
Well, I mean, comedians. Yeah. And Brady would be a great comedian. Brax is super quiet, and Kylie is even more quiet. So I would support it. I would want them to go to college.
Yeah.
I would want them to go to college and do comedy while pursuing college. I would encourage them to get into it earlier than I did, although that's hard. I guess sometimes you don't know, but I wouldn't be surprised if one of them wanted to do comedy.
I mean, they are around comics 24/7.
Comics are here 24/7.
Which it could be crazy. Like, I mean, if you extrapolate out, and like how I always say, you're the Mitzi Shore of Phoenix. Like, he could be like the Pauly Shore. Like, he grew up, whatever happens with any of us, he could be like, yeah, I remember growing up, I'm around Phil or Jack or, whatever.
I hope that they are like that someday. I hope that all of these, because our home, for people who don't know, I have an open door policy. And I mean, today there were 5 plus the 2 that live here. There were 7 different comedians plus me in this house at one point or another throughout the day. And that's a typical Tuesday for me. So, I mean, I hope that everyone succeeds and does really well, and that my kids grow up being like, yeah, Uncle so-and-so is,
All right, I have one more question. What was the hard question you thought I was going to ask?
No. Well, you said you were going to ask me about some of the issues I've had with people in comedy.
Yeah, well, I mean, I asked you, like, what's some of the headaches? What did you not answer? You kind of answered it. You just answered it in a general. You didn't give a. Yeah. Do you want to give one of the examples?
No, I would say.
Give a good a specific person example of a bad, and a specific person example of something good. Like, this comic was great. They did blah blah blah, and this comic.
Why I don't.
You don't have to say names.
Well, I don't know about that, but I would say that you're gonna be so mad that I'm saying this, but I would say that being a female in the comedy industry is very different than being a male in the comedy industry.
Why would I be mad at that?
And even more so being a female who doesn't do comedy, because I've never gotten on stage. I have stage fright. I've never gotten on stage and done comedy. Being a female in comedy who doesn't do comedy is very difficult. For starters,
sure.
people don't know who you are and they don't care until it's like I have gone to festivals as industry and not had my badge for some reason, and people won't talk to me.
Oh man.
And then I take my badge out of my purse and I put it on, and the same people like all of a sudden want to be my best friends. And I think that's true of probably all industry, but I think it's more true of females. I hang out with a lot of big dudes, and so I'm just like this little 5'4" person that like gets lost in the shuffle. And I think that
you're also not like boisterous, you know.
No.
Yeah.
I as much anxiety as comedians have about if people like them or not, I have at least that much. So, I mean, I had a comedian one time say like, well, you don't talk to me, so I just thought you didn't like me. And I said, well,
That's what I thought.
You don't talk to me.
Yeah.
And he's like, well, why would I come talk to you? Well, why would I come talk to you? I'm just as afraid of you as
like,
you are of
first?
me. So, I would say one of the things, and I think it's the thing that I get most frustrated about in comedy, is there is a generation of male comedians that are older than I am. I'm 38. That are older than I am, that have been doing this for a very long time and probably aren't where they thought they would be in their careers, or were and then now aren't. Gotcha. Or, you know, because comedy is ever changing. You could be a headliner today and a guest spot tomorrow. Yeah. So I have had some sort of difficulty with that generation of
my generation thing.
But not with you.
Yeah.
You and I are like thick as thieves, and we've always, I mean, we immediately bonded. And I would say Matt Broom is also of that generation, and he and I are very close friends. So I don't think that it's...
Were you about to say somebody else and then you stopped yourself?
No, I just was thinking that he probably doesn't want me to say how old he is.
Fucking, he's old. Who cares? He just had his birthday show.
I know, but I don't think he tells people how old he is.
What is he, 45?
I'm not going to
48?
say that.
He's 52 years old. Matt just turned 52 years old. Who cares?
No, but so there are definitely comedians in that bracket that I have bonded with and I'm friends with and I trust. But the comedians that I have had any issue with ever in all of comedy are from that older than me male generation who've been doing comedy for 12 or more years.
Well, I know somebody that was younger than you that just recently you had a little drama with, but I know.
That was my fault.
No,
well, it wasn't my fault.
No,
I could have just kept scrolling through Facebook and ignored it.
No, I'm not talking about that. That's a totally different one. So maybe there's multiple that you do. I'm talking about
yeah. Well, I mean that's a 20-year-old thing. I mean that's not a they don't respect me thing. That's a they just don't know better thing. When they're younger, I just want to believe that it's like they just don't understand like how important what you say is or whatever. But with the older generation, it's more of a who the fuck is this girl that she thinks she knows what she's doing. And I hate to tell you, I actually know what I'm doing.
Yeah. I mean, and that's, I mean, those people weed themselves out. And I don't know why you thought I was going to be mad at that. Because it's my age group?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't, who gives a fuck? We literally so we do the CB Live mic on Mondays, me and Bill Laskowski and other comics. And, it's an open mic, and open mic's an open mic. But the best part is afterwards. We always say the hang. That's my favorite part. And that's kind of always been my favorite part of mics is you do the mic and then you hang afterwards. And then like tomorrow, I told Bill, he's hosting a House of Comedy's open mic. So I was like, I'm coming up. I'm going to do a spot and then, hang afterwards. But we hung out afterwards and, I won't say the comic's name, but there's one of the guys, he's a newer comic and he produces a show, and there was a female comic, a local female comic that was going to be doing his show, and she's great. And she's pretty new. I think she's maybe a year maybe a year in. And she backed out of the show because they were in a group chat, and one of the people in the group chat made her feel uncomfortable. Mm-hmm. So she told this producer / newer comic, hey, I don't want to do the show. The guy's making me feel a little uncomfortable. I'm sorry. And she gave him enough time. But this guy, this dumb young comic producer, went on Facebook and wrote this big rant. Like the way we found out about this is because he put a rant on Facebook about like, if you cancel with me and go don't do another show and blah, blah, blah. And we were like, what was that all about? So when we started digging deeper, it all came down to she canceled because this other comic was being a fucking scumbag. And so we had to tell him, we were like, all of it. And it was, it wasn't just me. Me, Casey, Sydney, all of us were like, bro, you gotta, dude, she was in the right. You're in the wrong. You should apologize to her for being like that. And, yeah, I mean, I totally get that. It's fucking, I mean, that's one thing I pride myself on is I knock on wood. I mean, no one's ever said it to me, but I go out of my way to try not to be creepy to female comics. You were not
you were one of the comics that I've always felt like, I always take someone with me. One of the guys from my production team, I very rarely meet with comedians solo or industry. I just don't.
Yeah.
And really, I don't know if you know this, but a lot of times, and our venues too, when we first meet someone, a lot of times we are dealing with, again, the older male generation. And so they will talk to the guy that I bring with me instead of me. Like we went recently, we are thinking about doing some other events. And so we went and had a meeting with some people about an event that they wanted to do. And they only addressed the guys that I was with. And the guys really don't know any of the details behind planning Big Pine. Right. Or I give them tasks, but they don't know like the whole big picture. And so they just kept referring back to me. And it usually takes about 50% of our meeting before they just start addressing me because they realize that like, oh, well, she's the one with the answers.
Do you think it's them having that old school mentality or whatever, or is it, and I don't know, or is it that they know this guy as a comic, kind of as a peer, so like they're more comfortable addressing through them?
I think it's probably a combination, and it's also the fact that I'm pretty timid and I don't probably assert myself. Jenny is helping me with that. Jenny's helping me stand my ground a little bit. And so I'm so grateful to her for teaching me how to say no to people. But what I was going to say is you're one of the only comedians that I would ever just hang out with without like a buffer.
Oh, yeah.
Because I have never known you to be handsy. A lot of people are handsy.
Like that guy on Survivor.
Yes. Oh my gosh.
Was there more shit that came out? Okay, we'll talk about it afterwards.
I'm so mad. We'll talk
about it afterwards.
Okay.
I don't want to get you on a Survivor tangent. I mean, that's
my worthless of the week.
Okay, perfect.
That girl on Survivor.
Hold on. Okay. We'll get to it. So that's one thing. I mean, when I came up, I don't remember where. It might have been at a festival or somewhere. But I remember this specifically. I was maybe a year or 2 year in, and I remember somebody that I looked as like, oh, this is somebody I should be listening to, said as a booker or a manager, they were saying, we noticed, like what the comics do off stage. Mm-hmm. Like, do you get off stage and then you go to the bar and you start drinking, or you go to the bar, or you trying to sleep with the staff or another comic? Or do we see the guy that's at the door thanking each person that came through, handing out business cards, follow me on this? And he's like, we notice all that shit. And I mean, I was a year or 2 years in. And I also, maybe because I'm older, that I just don't give a fuck about getting laid. But that's never been my thing. And I always say, like, I don't, for me to date a comic, it would just because of how society is now and everything. I've said this on the podcast. A girl would literally have to say, Jay, I want to go out with you, and please let's go out.
Right.
I've had girls that I'm like, that I think are attractive, that I'm like, I definitely feel like this girl is flirting with me, but I just won't pursue it because I'm like, I don't want to come off as creepy, or because if I'm wrong, and then I don't want them to be like, oh, you just think that blah blah blah. So I've never I pride myself on that. I've never, tried to hit on a girl or whatever,
We hired security for me our
Jesus.
second year, the fifth year, or the fourth year of Big Pine. This year we didn't. This year the guys decided instead of paying someone, just one of them would always be with me. But I have had instances where like a comedian will pull me aside at the festival and want to talk to me about the festival, and all of a sudden like their hands on my thigh,
Jesus.
and I'm just sitting there and I'm like, okay, and I like try to stand. It can be very uncomfortable. People don't necessarily always understand their bubble, and people confuse me being friendly. I'm friendly. Once you get to know me, I'm very friendly. I'm very bubbly. I'm always smiling, happy. And a lot of people confuse that with, oh, she's flirting with me. And it's like, no, I just am like not like this to everyone.
I would probably, I'd probably be enraged. Because I told you, like, I see you as like a sister. So if I saw somebody fucking handsy with you, I'd be like, what the fuck?
Yeah, I mean, it happens more often than you would think.
And for the record, I think it is very hard for women in female comics in comedy, especially if they're not pretty. All right, so what is your?
Well, this relates to the my worthless of the week.
Yes.
Because okay.
I love it. It's funny. I love it. You're doing a worthless because I'm going to do a worthy of the week. But let me hear your worthless.
Mine is this girl on Survivor.
Yes. Which Hillary sucked me in off of one episode last night.
Because I was yelling at the TV. I was literally, it was midnight, and I was standing up yelling at the TV. I was so mad. So sexual abuse and sexual assault is a very real thing. We obviously all know that because of like the Me Too movement and whatever. And I do believe that there are people who don't realize that they're making other people uncomfortable.
Absolutely.
I also believe that there are, unfortunately, people out there who cry wolf and who make it very difficult for sexual abuse victims or survivors to come forward or to feel comfortable saying anything. And that's terrible. It is a difficult thing to talk about, and it's definitely, people are more freely talking about it now, but I mean, that has not always been the case.
Right.
I was sexually abused when I was a kid, and we moved.
Jesus.
Because it just wasn't a thing. It just wasn't so freely and easily confronted in the 80s and 90s. It just wasn't. So there's this man on Survivor who's a little handsy. Now, I don't know that it's intentional. It probably is not intentional because of his age, and he works in the entertainment industry apparently. Like, it's just, it's a thing. And he said on the episode, like, I apologize if I did that. Anyway, there's this group of females, and I feel as though some of them used that as strategic gameplay to manipulate other players and advance themselves in the game. Mm-hmm. And this one older woman really went to bat for these girls, these 20-something girls, and took a stand for them, turned on her alliance. Like,
went and talked to the guy.
Confronted him, and then...
And he had talked to the girls, and they were like, no, we're good. We don't have anything.
And I get that. Like, maybe these girls are at home and are like, I felt uncomfortable because he confronted me. I mean, I don't know what they are thinking or whatever. And obviously, there's a huge thing in editing. But I have never really yelled at the TV before because it just paints such a bad picture for women who actually need someone to listen to them.
Yeah.
And, this lady who stood up for them might in the future think twice about standing up for someone else because of this situation. And there's millions of people sitting at home watching this show and watching this take place. And the one girl is like, well, I just said what I had to say to get her to vote my way. And I was like, what? Like, you go home right now.
Yeah.
Vote her off right now. And she went home on the episode I watched today. So I was so happy. Both of the girls that unrightly...
I'll have to watch it now.
Well, the thing is it just... There are so many people trying to make a difference because they have been mistreated or because they see other people mistreated. And so I just think it's really unfortunate when people behave in a way that sets that back.
Yeah. And I think I just remembered something. I think also why I'm very adamant about, like, don't be creepy or whatever. I was working at Verizon Wireless. This is, oh God, I started working at Verizon in 98. Oh God. I worked there for like 10 years. So at some point in there, roughly 10 years, or no, I started working there in 94. Anyways, I remember I was working there. There was a girl that I thought was really pretty, and she had there was a girl on her team that I was friends with, this girl Wendy. And I was asking Wendy, I was like, you know, and I'm like, this is like 20 years ago, so I'm like 28, 20, so in my 20s. And so I'm asking Wendy about this girl. I was like, oh, what's her story, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, oh, she's single, you should ask her out, blah, blah, blah. And like Wendy's making it sound like Wendy never said like, oh, she's interested, or she asked, or I don't even know if she ever talked to her, but she was like, she specifically was like, yeah, she's single, you should ask her out. So I think I don't know if I messaged her or something. Somehow I asked her out, and then I remember we're in the office, and she goes, hey, can I talk to you for a second? I go, sure. So I'm thinking, is she gonna be like, oh, I'm not interested or whatever. She takes me in this back room, which was like a room you would go to, that we called it the quiet room, like in between shifts you could go and relax. So we're back there, and she's like, yeah, so, you know, however she said it, but basically she was like, you asked me out, and or you had talked to Wendy about me. Wendy knows I'm engaged. She was either engaged or married.
Oh,
I can't remember, but she was like, Wendy knows I'm engaged, and I was like, hey, Wendy told me you were single. She's like, well, I find that hard to believe because she knows I'm engaged or married or whatever. And I was like, what the fuck? And so I remember that specifically, and I was like, I'm never fucking asking a chick out with a chick that I work with out again, you know.
It's fine.
My worthy.
It's your Yelp review, not mine.
Yeah, my worthy of the week. My worthy of the week, and I posted it on something Matt had posted. Matt, I always how he says his last name, Miletich. Micheletti. Matt's, thank you. Matt's posted something, and I commented on it, but I strongly feel this. My worthy of the week is the Phoenix comedy scene.
Aw.
No, it's there's so many great comics here that are they're young. They don't have. I don't think there's a lot of comics have the time to headline, but they have the material. Like strong. There's strong comics here that are hungry. I just did Mike Turner's show at Genuine, and I was like, I got this new joke I want to work, and I'm talking to Mike Enders about it. Mike gives me a tag, and I'm closing out the show, and Mike goes up. And I'm like, I want to do this new stuff. And I'm listening, and Mike's crushing. And I'm like, God damn it. I was like, fuck, I want to work this new stuff. But now I feel like, do I got to do my best shit? And then I was just like, you know what? Fuck it. I'm going to open with a brand new joke. So I opened with a joke. It did well. The tag that Mike gave me, I did the tag, did great. And I said from the stage, after I did his tag, I was like, Mike, are you still in the room? He's like, yeah, right here. I was like, good one, or a good call, or good tag, or whatever. I was like, that was from Mike. So, and that, you know, it's not just Mike. There's so many good comics here, and I don't want to name them all off because we'll be here all night. But that's my. It's a great community here.
I like that one. I think that's a really good one. That's my worthy of
the week. I mean, like I said, the hanging out after the open mic. So, you know, when I was in Boston, I used to do Tavern at the End of the World. My buddy Scotty Lombardo's mic, and hanging out afterwards was the best part. And then in Seattle, we used to do the Underground, and then Tacoma Comedy Club opened up, and then we had our booth at Tacoma Comedy Club, and all the comics would be there. And I look at CB Live's open mic. The hang afterwards is great, and I'm hoping tomorrow at House of Comedy will be the same.
Well, I actually am planning to go with you to one of the Monday night open mics.
Sweet.
I got permission to attend, so I'm super.
Permission.
That's another podcast.
Yeah, all right.
So I'm super excited. I'm gonna go and I'm gonna hang out, and I look forward to the hang afterwards much more than the open mic.
We stay there sometimes till 1 or 2.
I know. So
and
I'm
no
excited.
Survivors playing, so.
I know, it's okay. It's okay. But so yeah, I definitely want to go with you probably in the next couple weeks. I think I'm gonna get a sitter, and
awesome.
I'll come out.
Sweet. All right, now give all your plugs. Where can everybody follow Broken Drift, everything?
You can find us on Facebook at Broken Drift Productions and Instagram. Same with Big Pine Comedy Festival on Facebook and Instagram. And that's mostly where I'm at. I try to keep my Instagram's private.
I mean, I'm part of it, but it's cool.
Well,
I know.
I only let comedians. I share only my kids, really.
Yeah.
So I only let comedians that
I've stayed here.
yeah, that have stayed, which is a lot. But yeah, I only let comedians that I'm like friends with on my Instagram. So
Broken
follow
Drift,
Big Pine or Broken Drift.
And I have the show's coming up. I have the main stage in Cottonwood this Saturday. If you're listening to this in Cottonwood, Arizona, at the main stage, and then I'll be in Florida and then Vegas. And I gotta go pee. So
oh wait, I have one more thing.
Yes.
If you're a comedian, you should apply to the Laughs Unlimited Festival, the 40 for 40 Comedy Festival. You just have to go to laughsunlimited.com. And also, you should apply to the Cactus Comedy Classic, which is in Glendale, Arizona. We're giving away $1,000. And yeah, you should definitely come. I'll be there.
And the NoHo Comedy Festival.
Yeah, the NoHo.
And the Bay Area Black Comedy Competition.
Yeah, and NoHo's giving away $1,000 too this year. So
awesome. Thank you, Hillary.
Thank
I gotta
you.
go pee.
Okay. Bye.